trust our local government. Um, as Shina mentioned, we will have more soon. Working to prepare a roundtable around children's separation, of the potential of children's separation, and how we can step in to support and what families should do now. If you want to do something ahead of the roundtable, it'll probably happen in a couple of weeks. Dr. Shahina, I'm happy to do something. But today, we want to cover a really important topic that I think has gone underreported in public. Does impact our immigrant small business in law and across will share more. I just want to emphasize how important it is because I've asked my if they're familiar with the law and the requirements, they are not proud of the courts that are due very soon. Uh, the fines can be significant. The last thing we want is for our communities to be fined and lose the income they so they've earned in so badly need. So we want to make sure that we get your support to uplift this upcoming deadline. And I'm sure there will be concerns and questions about immigration status and how that might impact, or if this has to do with their immigration status, and we can address that. But first and foremost, we want to get the word out. So with that, I want to pass it over to the commissioner to share a few words and share more about this law.
Thank you so much, Commissioner Castro. And thanks to you all for being here. It really is so important to have your partnership in spreading the word about the Corporate Transparency Act. So my name is Dinah Shell Gross. I'm the recently appointed Commissioner of the New York City Department of Small Business Services. It's SBS. Folks think of SBA very often. That's the federal agency focused on small businesses. These are your city tax dollars at work in the Department of Small Business Services. And it's great to see familiar faces in the room and to meet those of you who have not encountered before. So the work of our city agency is to unlock the economic potential of all New Yorkers, and we do that by serving small businesses and entrepreneurs, job seekers, providing support for neighborhood development, and also supporting minority and women-owned businesses and growing through government contracting. So through all of that work, we know how important immigrants are to the small businesses that are active in New York City. Immigrant communities have high labor force participation and they have high rates of small business creation. They drive the city's economy forward and they make our neighborhoods vibrant places to live, shop, and work. And so we want to be sure that we are doing our absolute best to keep them apprised of rules as they change and to help save them trouble, money, and worry. Under this administration, we've helped to deliver $290 million in grants and loan funding directly to small businesses. So that capital access is a big part of our work. And every day we're working in other ways to deliver on our vision for a safer, more affordable city. We've also awarded $35 million in grants to neighborhood organizations citywide since the start of this organization. And that's to ensure that the commercial districts where these businesses operate are safe and vibrant places so that the businesses can prosper. We have a particular program called NYC Best. That's our Business Express Services team. The goal of this team is to cut red tape and guide businesses through government regulations. And we've served 3,400 businesses thus far, and we estimate that we've saved them more than $36 million in fines and fees they would otherwise have incurred. So that's what we mean by compliance support, right? Every city, every state, the federal government, they have rules about how businesses can operate. And we want to be sure that we help businesses understand those rules and achieve compliance through education rather than them being fined and then complying after they've already incurred a cost. So we're working to meet New Yorkers where they are, and that's why we're doing these roundtables. And you are incredibly important and strong advocates for these communities. So we want you to help us get out the word. And today we're going to focus on the Corporate Transparency Act. So this is a law that was enacted by the federal government in 2021, but it just came into effect this year. The goal of the law is to combat illicit business activity, including tax fraud, money laundering, financing for terrorism. And what it requires is that businesses, and more than 90% of business are covered by this requirement, create a filing called a BOI. It's a pretty simple and free online form. But if a business fails to make this filing by the end of December, they're subject to penalties. The penalties that, as they're expressed in the law, are pretty significant. Cash penalties of up to $600 per day of non-filing. And they even contemplate imprisonment. Now, I don't want to panic the business community, and I'm not sharing this to create worry. We think it's easy for businesses to comply, and we don't know, because we're in a moment of political change, exactly how Washington plans to roll out enforcement. But they have the capacity under the law to enforce beginning in January. And so we want businesses to avoid the risk of non-compliance by making the filing. In addition, we know that this is a capitalist system and a capitalist city, and there are some who will try to take advantage of the lack of awareness that small businesses have, or the lack of understanding they have, and offer to do the BOI for them and charge a significant fee. We've seen fees of over $1,000 to do a free online filing. So we want to get out the word, connect people to support, connect business owners to support, so that they can get this done on their own, not pay someone an exorbitant fee, and not run the risk of non-compliance. And that's what you can help us get out of the word about. We are hosting webinars about this, multiple webinars per week, and we are doing them in language. Thus far, we've done them in Spanish, Chinese, Korean, and we have translated the materials for New York City businesses and made them available on our website, also Spanish. And we're going to show you what the filing looks like today, as well as what those web resources look like today. And we're going to continue getting out the word over the next 5 weeks about this obligation and even beyond. But we want to catch as many businesses as we can this calendar year. So with that, I'm going to pass the mic, virtual mic, to Kitty Chan. Kitty leads our division of business services at SBS, and she's going to show you both the BOI form, so you have familiarity with it yourself, as well as the website that we've stood up to connect New Yorkers to our resources.
Thank you, Commissioner Gross, and thank you, Commissioner Castro. It is so important that we get the word out about this, especially to our most vulnerable communities. So I really want to thank you in advance. This administration has done significant work and outreach. We've got a coalition of 10 city agencies working to get the word out. We've got it in multiple languages. We're really proud of what we've done. We've reached out to over 700 community-based organizations, and we're partnering with Legal Aid Society to deliver our webinars, and so that business owners that have specific questions can answer them. I'm going to get into more of that, but let me start off with the filing form itself. So this is run by the U.S. Treasury, and so the filing is actually really quite simple. If you look at it, they actually have you prepare or submit your BOIR here, and then you can actually do e-file, right? I agree. Okay, and then this is actually the form itself. And what it'll do is you can pretty much see these are really simple questions that folks can answer. But again, my biggest concern, and I think this might be a flag that all of you are aware of, it's only in English, right? And my worry is that business owners are like so scared that they will go to a third party, right? And they really don't need to. One of the things that we've done, and I've shared this with a couple of you, and I'll share more, we've actually translated every button that they're going to see there, you will see on our translations that we're offering on our website. We're making it really easy for people to understand what we're doing by doing the multiple webinars. We've actually translated the deck of our webinars too. Commissioner Gross is correct. We have got multiple, I think we've got another 6 for the rest of this year. We're skipping Thanksgiving. But I can go through the form with you and you can pretty much see it is really simple questions that a business owner would be answering. Most, I would say, no more than 10 minutes should it take a business owner to do this. And that's one of the reasons why we say do not go to a third party. If you're going to go to a third party, make sure it's a trusted source, like your lawyer or your CPA, right? One of the reasons why is when they hit submit, they actually say if a third party submitted this for you, can they certify that it's true, right? So if you went to a third party and they did it, really, they may not know it's true. What's going to happen, I don't know, but I think that if you're going to have a third party, make sure it's your lawyer or your CPA. But again, we've made this as easy as possible. We've actually built this site, Corporate Transparency Act, on the My City page. It's one of the many resources that we offer to small businesses. Just so you know, we actually direct them back to FinCEN, the Treasury page. We direct them there. We have all the information. We actually even have a video that the Treasury put up on how to file, right? So we're trying to make this as easy as possible. We really keep directing them back, but we created all these resources, right? So we actually have webinars here. Sorry. So we actually have been doing all these webinars. We've done some of them in different languages. But one of the most important things, and we have recordings. We're gonna put up recordings in English, Chinese, Spanish, and Korean, right? But what we've also done is, like I said, these webinars are being delivered by Legal Aid Society lawyers, right? We've actually taken the deck that they created and we've translated the deck to different languages as well. So maybe someone can't attend our webinar, but we do have all the information in their language. We're actually adding an additional 4 languages on, and they'll be up next week. Hindi, Nepali, Punjabi, and Tibetan will be up next week as well. Okay. So again, not only do we have the webinars, and by the end of the day, you're going to see the recordings of the webinars. We've actually also taken a lot of the materials and translated. So we've actually developed outreach flyers.
This is to drive folks toward the webinars and support the
Yeah.
flyer.
So the flyers are in multiple languages. So if you needed something to share, it's right there. We're telling people, don't worry. If you're okay with your filing, please tell a neighbor, tell a friend. You're in a commercial corridor. There's a bunch of businesses there. Share the information with them. It's so important. And then, like I said, the other thing that we found is that the BOIR filing portal, it is only in English. So I've shared this with some of you, and I've actually got more if you need more languages. But what we've done is we've translated every question that they're going to see here, every button that they're going to click in this thing, we've actually translated it so that people can understand and do it on their own. Okay. Any questions about our page so far? Okay. So one of the other things that we found is, so again, this is being rolled out by the US Treasury, right? And so it's across the nation, it's just not New York City. So we've partnered with the Treasury, and they're actually going to be delivering 2 of our webinars in December. We're really proud of this partnership because if there's any clarification, we go straight to them and ask them questions. The webinars have been really heavily attended. We've had hundreds of people in our webinar. The lawyers that are delivering it have been really good, and they're answering every question that we have. And we get all sorts of questions. The other day, someone asked, well, we're divorcing, who files? And it's like, either one of you can file, right? And that's one of the things that people need to know is that we have technical assistance for you. We can help answer your questions. So this is actually a lot of the campaign that you're going to see. Sorry, let me go back here. The flyers in other languages. One of the important things about this is we're actually giving them a QR code to go to the webinar or for more information. I'm sorry, this is not the best copy, or at least my eyes are not seeing it. But one of the most important things is that we're actually directing them back to our hotline. So our hotline 888-SBS4-NYC, our hotline staff is trained to answer simple questions. If not, they can actually direct them to one of our business solution centers. All of our staff has been trained on the Corporate Transparency Act and will be able to answer your questions. If they can't, we are actually in touch with Treasury and we'll get the answer for you. But this is what we've been doing for the last 6 months. I'm really quite proud of how all the agencies have come together, how all of our partners have come together. And now I'm asking you to join our partnership and help us get the word out. Because again, it's the most vulnerable businesses in New York that will be subject to these fines. It is $591 per day until they file. As we're all aware, for a small immigrant business, a week of fines like that could close them down. So I really need your help, and I'm asking you to join us. Any questions?
Thank you, Deputy Commissioner. So yeah, you all are trusted messengers. And articles, the radio stations, outlets that you all have get to really the sectors that Pix 11 won't get to, that New York 1 won't get to. So that's why we've invited you here and welcome you every month to City Hall to get this critical. So with that, I'd like to open up QA section and just introduce yourself and
One more
and
thing.
Commissioner.
I think one good question for you to ask yourself is, you own your own media company, have you done this yourself? You know, and if you haven't, you should, you know, and your advertisers, are they aware of this? Because that'll impact their bottom line, right? You don't want that. You want them advertising with you, not paying such fees. We need your help to get the word out. And one thing to clarify, because this always comes up and it's really important. This is a requirement by the federal government, not New York City. New York City stepping in, as we always do, to help New Yorkers. And we are trying to help immigrant New Yorkers because, again, the federal government has only made this website available in English. We want to make sure language access is available for our immigrant-owned businesses. But again, this is the federal government, not New York City. Another very important thing that always comes up, this is not an immigration filing. This is a separate federal agency. Now, I understand that immigrant communities, especially non-citizens, you know, regardless of their status, there's anxiety around providing information. But as was shared already, the fines are very significant. And so we want to encourage people to fill out this form and submit. But if you do have questions about your immigration status and about the information you will be providing the federal government, you should consult your immigration lawyer. That's very important. So I'll leave it at that because I want to make sure that's clear.
Yes.
Thank you. And like I said, we're providing you with the questions that the filing, they don't ask about immigration status. Okay, so that's one really important thing. I think that's a big worry. And if you actually look, it looks bulky, but really they're like, oh, street name, city name. I mean, so they actually broke it down, so it looks like there's a lot of questions, but it's really not.
Yeah, it's generally contact information and identifying information for the owners who have a substantial stake in the business. They want to understand who owns these businesses in case there's, you know, some need for them to be in contact. So, you know, we analogize it to the Secretary of State filing that a business has to make when they're created in New York. This is a new federal requirement to share who the owners are behind the entity.
And just so you're aware, there are 23 exceptions to this rule, but they are actually industries that are already regulated in a different way. So it's banks, credit unions, insurance brokers, anything really mobile companies. But those are the exceptions to the rule because they already file in a different manner. So this is capturing all the other information.
Yeah. Any neighborhood business, the laundromat, the
Taxi driver?
retail, the
Yeah.
taxi driver, they're covered by the obligation to file.
Yeah, because I thought at first it was just for
Anyone who does a filing with either the state or a similar office needs to file.
Alison Walker, no, I have a question. Just mention
So that's what's set out in the law, fines of $591 a day or imprisonment. But I don't want to, I don't want to,
If you don't mind,
Sure,
Commissioner, just a
Katie.
clarification. So it's $591 per day, but then there's a clause in the law that says if they can prove that you willfully did not file, which again, we don't know how they're gonna actually determine that or prove that, that it's $10,000 fine and 2 years in prison, right? So again, some of this is not really clear to us. We've actually been talking to Treasury, like, what does enforcement look like? And I think that they haven't quite figured it out yet either, but that is actually what's written in the law.
so this law is being implemented at a time of political change, right? Governance change in Washington DC. So it came into effect this year, and many of the folks who've been at the helm at Treasury, as the administration changes, there'll be new leadership at Treasury, just as this is coming into the period of enforcement. So again, I don't want to raise panic. We don't know how they're going to resource the enforcement activity. You know, how many staff will they have focused on this? What will their procedures be? We can't predict that right now. And because it's a new obligation, there's not a track record of enforcement for us to learn from. So what we're trying to do is share the information. The obligation is in law. And so that's real. And the potential for the penalties are there. And it's also easy enough for folks to comply that with the support we're providing, we think they can accomplish it. So we want them just to avoid the risk. That's the message.
Website of the.
Oh, okay, so it's actually here, we're actually loading them up this afternoon. So if you actually go to our My City page, which we will make sure all of you get somehow, yes, yeah.
All of our media content, the website that the businesses file, where you can find.
So we're actually going to have it on this site, and it's gonna be under informational webinars in multiple languages. You're actually going to see the recordings there. We're actually just in the process of editing it, so they should be up, I was told, this afternoon.
And those will be recordings of the webinars we've already conducted, including those in language. And Kitty, if they want to register for upcoming webinars, you see that link there in blue in the section. This will take them to our Eventbrite page to register for workshops that are happening in the future.
Yeah.
That's where the lawyers will actually be on and they can ask their questions live.
To address, I know this is a big question. How does this, and if it does, impact independent contractors and informal workers like nannies?
So if they have created an entity, they're likely covered. If they're working as a sole proprietor and they're filing taxes under their own social security number, then I don't believe
No, they don't.
they're covered by the rule. But if they have formed an entity under the laws of this state or any state in the country, then unless they're in one of those categories of exception where they're otherwise regulated, then they are covered by the Corporate Transparency Act obligation.
I asked
Actually,
the
yeah,
question.
that's, yeah, because, once we received the email, I went and talked to, the neighborhood. They said, well, we're not saying that you shouldn't, but this really doesn't. I think it's very important to break it down again. Who are your target? You know, because we call ourselves within the community as businesses. We have because these are businesses that like under $500,000 contract, $300,000. What you guys call small businesses, we're talking about at least when you're doing $1 million plus, and that's not the case here. So if you could break it down, really, who are the target? So in our case, with the West African Community Foundation, are they really? Because I heard you say about taxi drivers, and I may say those that own hair salon and so on. So if you could just break it down, so when we talk to them, we can really explain them who are, really concerned about this situation.
So the reason why I mentioned taxi drivers is that some of them have actually formed LLCs, right? And to actually have their medallion, not all of them, but the significant number. So we're working with TLC to get the word out for that population. But just to let you know what the the law says, and it does not specify number of employees or revenue. It doesn't at all. What it just says is if you are not in this group, right? It says the 23 exceptions. So I'm going to go here. I know, me too, right? But it'll include this for you. So this is the main Treasury site, right? And the one I took you to was just where you file, which is where you click here, right? But here's a small business resource. Now, keep in mind, small business can mean anything. It varies from city, state, and federal. But if you read this law, it does not say anything about revenue or number of employees, right? The only thing it says is if you're not in this group. So if you actually go, they have these resources here. And frequently asked questions. Sorry, this is where I'm not going to be able to see anything. So, sorry, let me go to it. You can't tell I actually know this very well. So here are actually the list of the exceptions, right? So really, that's it. That's what they're telling you is everyone who is registered with either the state or a similar entity has to file unless you're in one of these categories.
Right,
That's
so
what it says.
Con Edison doesn't have to file.
Yeah.
They're a public utility.
Yeah.
Right? Or a credit union, banks, we don't have to file as
Exactly.
SBS. But you see, there's no exception based on industry, business type, whether they have employers, don't have employees, whether or not they made $100 last year. They've created an entity, right? And they were established before this deadline. They have a filing obligation.
Basically, everybody that,
Yeah.
own a business should file.
Yeah.
Everyone who, yes.
Yes.
Make it simple.
Yeah.
Clarify my question or comment, and correct me if I'm wrong. If you're a freelance writer, for instance, and you're filing your taxes as an independent contractor, you're getting paid, by news media, you don't have to submit this form. But if you started an LLC, Immigrant Media LLC or Immigrant Media Corporation, you have to file. So
That's right.
that's the
Yes.
distinction.
Issa Campbell, Africa in Harlem. I think his concern was because many in the West African immigrant community are self-employed. So I think that's what he wanted to clarify. If you're self-employed and you haven't registered your business, then you don't have to file,
Correct.
right?
That's right.
But if you taken steps to formalize it, then you have to
Yeah.
file. If you haven't done anything and you're just making money, but filing your taxes, you don't have to file.
That's right. This is a filing for entities.
Yeah.
Beneficial ownership interest. They want to know who are the human beings behind the entity, right? So entity formation is threshold requirement. If you're filing, you're working as a freelancer, you're a sole proprietor, you're filing taxes, they know who you are. You're identified in that filing. But if you've created an entity, the goal here is for you to share with the Treasury Department who the individuals are behind the entity.
And for your information, most of, I know, are single owners. They own the whole. So I don't think that was the people of also.
They're covered,
They're covered.
yes.
Yeah. And
It's just a simple filing
yeah,
for them.
it's a simple filing. The other part of the law is in 2024, any new businesses that register with the state, once they receive their certification from the state, they have 90 days to register. That's how they're capturing new businesses. In 2025, any new business that forms, and once they receive their registration, they have 30 days to file. If they do not file within that 30-day window, they were subject to the same fines. And I know $591 sounds crazy. It's because the law says it's $500 and each year it's adjusted for inflation. So next year they're adjusting it for $591. It may increase. So that's why we want to make sure businesses know about this. Any new businesses forming, they need to know about this.
Like, will be a yearly filing?
No, once they file, it's done. The only time they'll have to refile is if something changes in the ownership. Say Danishal and I both bought a business, I bought her out, then I have to refile as just myself.
But if you own a business and nothing changed,
then you're fine.
You're fine.
It's an
Fine,
initial
okay.
filing,
Yep.
and if there are no changes to the ownership in your business, that initial
So you're
filing
good.
is fine.
So this doesn't concern.
No, it does.
It-
If you own the
You have to
business-
do the initial filing.
Once you file this,
Yes, you do the initial filing, and you only have an obligation to update when there are changes in your business's ownership.
but if they.
It's not an annual filing otherwise.
What if change in the ownership, or there's a change, let's say it's,
Contact information, yes, they would like you to update.
business, I don't have to tell you, it gets messy in our communities, right? I think that's
because
your
this
question.
is serious. I mean, I'm glad that you guys, made it happen. Because so sad, we always come in the last minute. Because you guys are saying it's already done, so it's already happening. We're gonna do what we have to do to talk to the communities. But it would be better like if we can be ahead, like we were not, I mean, at least I was not aware of all this. And most of our community, that's why the mayor created this, and which is very important. So we was in a way forgotten, and not all of us was watching or reading or listening to the minister meeting. So it would be great if we could have heads up before deadlines happen. But it looks like we always come at deadline. Now we got to run to our community and let them look. This is happening right now. Hurry up, get it done. And most of these people, like you say, you guys are worrying about them going to the third party. Most of them, that's what they do. It's just what it is. That's the reality. And people are making them pay more money than they should.
So as Kitty mentioned, we've been working on this for about 6 months. And our hope was that, that Treasury would lead, right? It's a federal obligation, and we want to be sure that we've got up-to-date information. So when we're translating materials, if something changes, we've got to go back and translate it again. I think because of the timing, with the election and now with the transition, there's not as much of a commitment to outreach that we're seeing. They are partnering with us on the webinars, and we're very grateful for that. But it took a while to get to that point. And that is why we're playing our role, which builds on work that we've always been doing with immigrant businesses in New York City and in compliance advisement. This is a long-term commitment for SBS. So we agree. We want to get out the word as soon as possible. But because this is a federal regulation, because we don't want to cause panic or unnecessary, commitment of resources for anyone, we were attempting to align with Treasury on this. We're very glad to have reached that point now. And hopefully the urgency will actually inspire folks to listen and pay attention and do the filing. That the end of the year is approaching, and the end of December is the deadline for folks who created businesses prior to 2024 to make the initial filing. So the potential for enforcement begins in January.
And I will add that Moya and SBS are very coming to you. What does that mean? Our teams, our outreach teams, will be across the 5 boroughs, visiting small businesses and helping them file. So I think the city is going above and beyond.
No, we know. Yeah, for sure.
From what the federal government, really their responsibility, as always, the city is. We go into the information on our days of action that will get an SBS December in the post press release. You guys are welcome to join us as well. Maybe do another article on it, or a film, or do an on-site interview. I'm sure both commissioners will be attending. And what about the chambers of commerce?
Oh, yes.
I'm sorry. Hablo Fernando from EFE, Douglas Conference.
Yes, we're working with the Chambers of Commerce. Katie mentioned we're working with 700 community organizations that we've shared this information with. We have a small business advisory commission that includes all of the 5 borough chambers of commerce and other organizations. We're putting out the word to all of our business improvement districts. We have an Asian American Small Business Task Force, a Latino American Small Business Task Force. We're working with 10 city agency partners, including our Community Affairs Unit and Moya, to be sure that we get out the information citywide.
That's why in these roundtables, I always clarify, this is the federal government, not us.
Yeah.
Sometimes they blame the city,
Right.
but we're the
Yeah.
ones that are
Yeah.
stepping in
You have
to
to know, you
support.
gotta-
And, you know, this is a theme. Every time we meet, we always say this. I wish I can give work permits to people. We don't have that authority, right? But we have to help people as best we can. This is the same thing. The federal government has these rules. We want people to, you know, follow because they will be fined, you know, and other things might happen.
I think you had a question.
Yeah, my name is Javier Castaño, Queens Latino. I have a lot of questions. You said that the deadline is December. When the law was approved,
2021
2021?
came into effect in 2024. So usually there's an enactment, right, the legislative process, and then a later effective date. So the law was actually passed in 2021, became effective this year.
You also mentioned that the New York State, when you receive the New York State certification next year, you have 30 days for file this.
Yes.
Yes.
Right, unless you start receiving the fine of
$591.
91.
Yeah.
I own a small business,
Yeah.
and I am certified by the city. For me, I guess this is normal.
Yeah.
For the people who hasn't filed anything, they can just continue, right? So the motivation of this meeting is that you think that the new administration, the Trump administration, is going to be against those small businesses.
No, not at
Jose,
all.
Jose, the question is, you have your business.
Yeah.
Have you submitted this form? If you haven't, you should. That was what I
Well,
said, yeah.
So I understand that, but that can be done in another fashion, let's say, but you are just saying, okay, just avoid the fine, just do this, right? Okay, so it's, but you don't even know if they are going to apply the law and how they are going to apply it.
Well, that's because if you look, it was passed in 2021 under this administration. We don't know what the next administration is going to do. Again, I also believe that what's going to end up happening, and this is my feeling, we're all gonna figure it out together, right? But I can guarantee you one thing: SBS is here to help every small business owner in New York City, and we're here to help you by learning the law, making relationships, being partners. And so, if you have a business that needs help, I'll give you my card. Here, call me. And Danisha will tell you, this is to me really important, and I will answer any question. I'll get you any support you need. But
Let me put my question the other way.
Sure.
The city is not supposed to be doing. They don't know
no,
what's going
no,
on.
not that. It's just, I don't think that they had an a rollout plan. The Treasury Department has done, I believe, a couple of webinars, in the city. But to me, I think that one of the most important things that make New York City special is our immigrant population. But that also makes them our most vulnerable businesses. And so when I saw this site and I said, oh my God, it's only in English, I said, we got to translate. We have to have webinars. We have to have them in multiple languages. So I am me, but what is Cleveland, Ohio doing? I don't know, right? So they may have different needs. What we did at SBS is we said, this is what we need to do to help small businesses, and we're going to do it. And that's part of us being in this administration. We stepped up. When I reached out to all the other agencies, they all stepped up. I bothered Commissioner Castro at a panel meeting. I was like, can I talk to you about Corporate Transparency Act? Because that's what we do in this administration. We step up to help, especially the most vulnerable population.
And if you speak with the advocates, their organizations, they will tell you this is why the federal government needs to do more to translate documents because it impacts all of us, you know?
But why they
You know,
not,
I-
sorry? Why
You
usually
talk to
they
them
don't?
about it, but
Why the federal government is not doing it? Why they say, oh, we appreciate what the city's doing. Why they not doing it?
Well,
Expect the city to
we're going to be partnering with Treasury on 2 webinars in December. And I encourage, maybe we can see if there's any openness, but I think it really is challenging for Treasury at this moment because
Yeah.
lots of things are about to change at Treasury. And so I don't think we know who will be leading Treasury or what resources will be allocated for enforcement. Maybe if this filing was more odious, maybe if it required a CPA or required a business, like an audited financial statement, we might be taking a more cautionary note right now. But this is a simple filing. And so this is a good strategy to avoid the risk by getting in front of it, by doing this simple filing.
And, you know, like I said, we're doing what we can for this city. Treasury, I don't think the staff working on this is that big, but they have 50 states. And like I said, what we're doing might be different than what another small city is doing. I think what they tried to do was just try to be as helpful as possible. I'll tell you this, someone asked me some questions. I said, I don't know, let me ask Treasury. They actually gave me their cell phone number. I called them up and I said, here's a question about a church, right, and stuff. So they've been really responsive when we have questions, when we have to interpret the law. I call them or I email them and they help us right away. And that's how we're actually providing services to small business owners. We're trying to get them the information as soon as possible.
I would say not every, government entity has the same approach to compliance. Some folks think you make the rule. If they don't follow the rule, you fine them. By experiencing the penalty, they learn and they will be in compliance in the future. It has been a long-term commitment of the city of New York, and we have a team at SBS that's really focused on business education to create compliance. We're not just doing this with the Corporate Transparency Act. When a business wants to open its doors, before they get there, if a restaurant wants to open, they don't have to have their first inspection with the Department of Health that's going to result in the letter grade. We have a team that's former health inspectors. We will go sit with that business, walk through the steps so that when they have that actual regulatory inspection, they pass. So we're working every day, and we have a team and our business solution centers that are focused on helping businesses understand their obligations and comply. And we were able to activate those partners and that staff for this project. So we're in a good position to take this on.
Education first. That's what we believe in at SBS.
Any more questions as we are in our last 5 minutes?
I want to say this is why we have the greatest SBS office in the country, right?
And the fabulous
I think
Office of Immigrant Affairs.
But your questions are fair, and you should ask your, Congress members and senators, right? And to look into this. And, I think this is why we're here, and this is why city government is so important. And I know many of you, including yourself, your readers, from different parts of the country will read this and say, well, does this impact me? I didn't know. So this is very valuable that you're covering this.
And let us know too, if you become aware of business owners that are encountering, any unscrupulous kind of schemes about this filing, please let us know so that we can connect them to free, reputable support. We're not making this up. We're not relying on a cursory read of the statute. We are working with lawyers who are advising small businesses on this. So it's reputable support and it's free to them. So please help us spread the word and make the referral so that we can be sure that no one either bears the fine or the costs.
When it's ready, you guys be able to send us the
Yes,
link
so
or
I
the-
actually want to introduce you to our SBS communication. We have Joseph, and we also have so we will work together to get a full release out today. With all of this information, help, and please spread the word. We'd love to see the room packed. I know there's hundreds, if not thousands, of that really are integral to getting information out to the community. So please, if you know of another city that hasn't been here in a while, please invite them to our next Immigrant Media Roundtable that will happen in December about
Where's that gonna happen, here or?
it'll happen. Yeah.
There's room. This is probably going to be.
That'll be a big one.
That's right. Okay. Thank you all.
Thank you.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
So